everybody, this is Leigh Daniel. I've been practicing in the area of family law for almost 25 years, and I want to share with you the kinds of custody designations that you can have in your divorce or in your paternity case if there's not a marriage involved. So first of all, there is joint physical custody. Joint physical custody is when you share custody on a roughly equal basis. It doesn't have to be exactly equal, but you do have to live in close enough proximity to share time with your children on a pretty much equal basis. There's some law that said that you have to have actual physically shared custody close to the same time to actually be able to call it joint physical custody, even though it doesn't have to be equal. So we have joint physical custody, and then with that, you have to designate who's going to be the tiebreaker for some of those areas of your children's lives. So there are 6 categories, and the first one is civic. People are always asking me, what is that? To be honest, I'm not quite sure, but I think that you could look at civic as Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. The next one, cultural. Again, what the heck is cultural? Well, think about art, dance, and also, of course, these could be considered extracurricular, but cultural, I would think, would be art, dance, drama, any kind of maybe a cultural trip, language, some things of that nature. That seems to be cultural. Extracurricular seems to be more around the sports area, even though, of course, those other things could be considered extracurricular as well. But you're looking at extracurricular being sports activities, anything that you would do outside your traditional education, which is another category. And then the other categories are religious and then health and the medical care. So every one of those 6 categories has got to be designated. Usually it's roughly equal. So you want to get one of the good ones. Cultural and civic may not seem as important as religious, medical, education, or extracurricular. So the other thing that you need to think about when you have joint custody is the tax deduction. Are you going to alternate the deductions for your children? You also need to think about how the expenses are going to be covered. If there's joint physical custody, at the current time, there is no Rule 32 calculation for joint physical custody. Sometimes we lawyers make up a joint physical custody calculation by using the primary custody calculation and then deducting what one party would pay if they had primary and what the other party would pay if they had primary, but that's not an official way to do it. There's no official way, according to Alabama state rules, to calculate joint physical custody. Sometimes the parties share expenses of the children. If you're going to do that, then you just need to delineate what all the expenses are. You don't want to be the party that's stuck with paying all the expenses. Some of the things are educational fees, books, school fees, gifts, cars, car insurance, cell phones, computers, all kinds of things like that. You want to be pretty specific. It also will probably say in your divorce that each party will be responsible for that child when they're in their care. That means you're going to pay for the kids' food. You're going to pay for their clothes when they're with you. You're going to pay if they need some allowance when they're with you. If the incomes are really unequal, then you may need to do a pro rata share, which means that one party makes 70% of the combined gross income. They would pay 70% of the expenses. Then the other thing you really need to think about is if you're the party that's giving the money to the provider, how are you going to be reimbursed? Will you be reimbursed by the first of the month? Will you be reimbursed in 3 months? And is there a number that, let's say you want your child to go on a trip. You want them to go on a trip to Washington, D.C., and your ex-spouse says, absolutely not. Is there going to be a provision that you can pay for that? And the other person won't pay, but the child can go on that trip as long as you pay for it. So those are all things that you need to consider with joint physical custody. And of course, you need to consider the time. What time are you going to have custody? Generally, I think week to week works a little better than doing alternating days during the week, just because it's hard for the children to keep going back and forth. The joint physical custody is something that the courts must consider according to Alabama state law. But each jurisdiction has different rules, and each jurisdiction will do something different. There are certain counties that the judges just don't award joint physical custody. And without practicing in those areas in front of those judges, you wouldn't know that. But the courts should consider joint physical custody. Now, the other one that is joint legal custody means that you have equal rights and equal responsibility when it comes to looking at the children's medical records, seeing the school records, going up to the school. But if one party has primary, then that party will be the tiebreaker. That party gets to make the decisions. Remember those decisions we talked about just a second ago? Those decisions will be made by the primary caregiver, the primary custodian, who also is the primary caregiver, if there is a joint legal and primary custody designation. And of course, you have to think about what's the custody schedule. In Madison County, we have a standard visitation schedule. That standard visitation schedule sets out all kinds of holiday visitation. It has something provided for the special holidays. It's super comprehensive, and the judges are not likely to alter that. That's not to say that they won't. It's just to say that generally the standard visitation schedule will be the schedule that's going to prevail. And depending on what county you're in, your county may or may not have a standard visitation schedule. So those are the different types of custody designations that you can ask for. And I hope that was helpful. If you have any more questions, then please just contact our office. We'll be glad to help you.